One day, some great explorers came from the old world, which we know as Europe, and they sailed on their ship and they landed in the new world, which we will call America. Hello, everybody. I am Christopher Columbus Barnacles, and I am Quasi Veracruz. Nice to meet you all. And they noticed that the natives had things they had never seen. What is that over there? Well, in the New World, they had tomatoes. We've never seen tomatoes. And what is that yellow thing? Well, it's corn. Oh boy, corn. The native people had never seen things that the Spanish people had. What is that you have over there? That's our horse. Oh boy, we don't have horses. However, one day, Quasi Veracruz Kitten got sick. It was just a small cold. However, the native people had never experienced this cold. They got really sick from it. Altogether, this was what was called the Octonaut Exchange. I meant the Columbian Exchange. All right, welcome back. By the way, it shouldn't have been Quasi Veracruz Kitten. It should have been Quasi Cortez Kitten. And Cortez lands in Veracruz. I apologize for the inaccuracy in that recreation. Okay, so I should be able to ask you a question. What are the origins of global trade? You should be able to come up with one or two answers. What are the origins of global trade? Did you say Columbian Exchange or Silk Road? Because if you did, you got it right. Hold on. Very good. Both of them, interestingly enough, transport diseases later on. We'll talk about the Black Death or the plague. We're getting to that. It is the Middle Ages. So what does the Middle Ages refer to? This is the time after Rome. So Rome has collapsed. And before modern Western civilization, before the discovery of America, basically we're talking 400 AD, 5th century to 15th century, which is, we'll just say 1492. Why not just say Columbus? Okay, so we're going to start off with, as always, with geography. Okay, you should know that that's coming. We'll review what topography means. We'll talk about Eurasia, whether it should be Europe, Asia, or Eurasia. There's a void after the collapse of Rome. After the collapse of any sort of large empire, you usually go into some type of recession or depression because there's going to be less trade. There's going to be less confidence that you can load up your wagon with goods and it won't get stolen from you, okay? Let's see here. I want to ask you a question. Okay, what's a primary source? What's a secondary source? What's the difference between the two? Go. Okay, primary source. You were there. George Washington's diary, a map, something that was at the event. Primary source. Secondary source is usually a book that's written about the event later on, or something that's compiled using the primary sources. Does that make sense? Remember the word bias? Secondary source has the potential for more bias. Okay, good job.
Excellent.
Okay, so when are the Middle Ages? Again, 5th century to 15th century. That's close enough for me. Who is Charlemagne? He's going to be one of the emperors of the Holy Roman Empire. We'll talk about him. He is critical in spreading Christianity. And then what type of threats do you have in Europe? Vikings from the north, Muslim invaders, which we'll talk about. By the way, real quick, battle that stops the Muslim invasion right around the edge of Spain there, in the edge of France. What is that main battle? Give you a hint. We did telephone games. Did you say the Battle of Tours? Okay, do you remember Battle of Tours? Okay, we'll talk about that. And here we go. Here's your timeline. Okay, start of the Middle Ages, 5th century, end of the Middle Ages, 15th century. You can see down here at the bottom where it's got the little pictures, the Roman Empire falls and the discovery of America. That's about the distance. Okay, I want you to take a look at this map. What do you think about this map? Does something kind of look off to you? Does it look normal? Is this the map you've always seen? Looks a little different, right? Okay, let me show you what the map is that I normally use. We've seen that one a lot, right? Here's the classroom map that's in most classrooms. What's the difference between this map and the map that I just showed you a second ago? Okay, very good. Look, it's what's at the center of the map. Here you kind of have Asia as the center, maybe the ocean, something like that. This is a Eurocentric map. And so people sometimes complain that Europe puts itself at the center of the world by putting itself on the center of these maps. Whether you want to believe that or if you agree or disagree, that's your business. I don't particularly care. My personal opinion, I like this map because America's in the middle. America. Okay, back to the maps. So you can take a look at this large land mass. And if you look at the land mass, the physical geography, there's an argument that that should be called Eurasia, that it's one giant continent. However, we call them Europe and Asia. And a lot of that has to do with more human geography than physical geography. It has to do with cultural differences. And so if you want to call them Europe and Asia, or if you want to call it Eurasia, I will never give you points or take away points. That's up to you. I just want you to understand that to some people, Europe having its own continent is unnecessary, and it's some sort of just way of them, almost like an ethnocentricity, like they're promoting their own well-being or their own culture above others. That's up to you. Okay, so here's Europe plus Asia. You get Eurasia. Awesome. If the map shows three-dimensional depth, mountains, that's a topographical map we're reviewing. You should know that. So let's look at the topography of Europe. You're going to have a lot of different geography. If you're up north, look at that. If you're up around the Norwegian Sea, okay, that's going to be real cold. If you're down there in the Mediterranean and around Italy, that's going to be nice and warm. You can grow a lot of stuff. Mountains north of Italy. What are those called? You didn't remember. Oh, you did? Oh, okay. Alps. Good job. Okay, Alps. Don't forget about those. Now we're going to learn some new friends, and they're called the Ural Mountains. Okay, and this is going to be the line between Europe and Asia. Ural Mountains. Here's a bigger arrow, and here's a giant arrow with the Ural Mountains in the arrow. Okay, here's my classic sound effects. Doot, doot, doot. Okay, very good. All right. So you get a variety of geographical conditions. So you get Scandinavia. You're going to live by the sea. What are you eating? What are you doing? What are you building? If you live by the sea, what type of technology do you have? If you live by the sea, what are you good at building? Right, boats. Exactly. You're good at building boats. Spoiler alert, Vikings are going to come. Vikings make awesome boats. Okay, when they talk about northern, they're talking about like France, maybe even Germany. And what's interesting here is if you take a look at Paris, it's not really on the sea. It's inland, but it's on a big giant river. So that's kind of interesting. And why would you do that? Protection, right? You don't want your coastline, maybe something like that. And then southern, you're going to have the Mediterranean, Greece, Italy. You're able to grow more food and different types of food and things like that. Okay, excellent. Here's some pictures. So we're talking about Scandinavia. Here's just a nice picture of the northern. It's cold. here's Middle Europe, and here's Southern Europe. Okay, so lots on the Mediterranean there. So lots of different things. Okay. What mountains separate Europe from Asia? We just talked about them. The Ural Mountains. Good job. All right. Excellent. Happy face for you. Who spreads religion? Missionaries. Okay, don't forget about that. It's a Christian missionary. It's a Buddhist missionary. If you're spreading your religion, it's a missionary. Let's go with St. Patrick. Okay, he brings Christianity to Ireland. According to legend, he drives the snakes into the sea. Here's a quick video about St. Patrick.
St. Patrick's Day, the day we all pretend to be Irish down a few Guinness. But who was this St. Patrick guy anyway? Here's a brief history of St. Patrick's Day. Well, first of all, St. Patrick wasn't even Irish. Born in Britain in the late 4th century, Mywin Succat was captured and enslaved by Irish raiders. After years of forced labor, he escaped to Britain, where he joined the Catholic Church, changed his name to Patricius or Patrick. Years later, he returned to Ireland as a Christian missionary, devoting nearly 30 years to converting the Irish. Now, legend has it that Patrick drove all the snakes out of Ireland, but to tell you the truth, there never were snakes on the island. When he finally died, Patrick became the patron saint of Ireland, despite his British heritage. It all began in 1903, when St. Patrick's Day, also known as Feast Day, became a national holiday in Ireland, celebrated on March 17th, the day of St. Patrick's death. Festivities usually just amounted to attending church and gathering for feasts. In fact, drinking was actually banned in Ireland on St. Patrick's Day up until the 1970s. Irish immigrants brought the tradition to America in the early 1700s, where it evolved into a secular holiday, often centered around drinking and celebrating all things Irish. The first ever St. Patrick's Day parade was held in Boston in 1737. And today there are over 100 St. Patrick's Day parades across the U.S. In Chicago, they use 40 pounds of green dye to turn the river even greener each year. And New York City's annual parade is the largest in the world, with an estimated 2 million spectators. With over 34 million Americans claiming Irish ancestry, even more claiming to be Irish when they're not, it's no surprise this holiday has become one of the largest in the country.